The following program is the work of broadcast students from the British Columbia Institute of Technology. BCIT magazine features news stories from around the Lower Mainland which were produced over the past week. Responsibility for the content of the show rests completely with the students and their instructors.
Today on BCIT magazine, Idle No More gains momentum with more groups joining in support. And picket lines surrounded BC Place as workers strike for a new contract. And methadone patients rally for a voice in health authority discussions. Hello and welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Jen Bailey.
And I'm Virginia McConkey. Police faced off against a man wielding a knife in North Burnaby this past week. The incident happened on East Hastings between Gilmore and McDonald Avenues. Neighbors reported hearing 2 or 3 shots after police were confronted by the man. Sue Wood lives in the area and was surprised to wake up to the scene.
We don't really get a lot of stuff around here like that at all. It's shocking. I don't know what the circumstances are, so really, how can you comment on that? Yeah. I mean, you don't know. I don't know.
The man was taken to hospital after being shot, where he died from his injuries. The Independent Investigations Office has taken over the case and are trying to find out how the meeting escalated to a fatal shooting.
Earlier this month, Idle No More supporters met with Prime Minister Harper. Protesters are calling the meeting a small feat, but they say the movement will not sleep until controversial bills are changed. As Angela Jung found out, the protests are gaining momentum, with more groups joining in support.
When I say idle, you say no more. Idle!
No! Idle No More participants mark January 28th as their World Day of Action.
We're trying to stand up and say the destruction of our land and our waters, that can't happen.
But Jerry Lynn Webster says that destruction has become possible because of Bill C-45, which she says weakens the Indian Navigation Protection and Environmental Assessment Acts. BC's Vice President of the Canadian Union of Public Employees agrees. He's also protesting against the omnibus budget bill.
A bill that he jammed through the government without any consultation, without any debate with people in this country. Mr. Harper, it's more than just one meeting. It is about having a series of conversations.
Idle No More participants also hope to start more of these conversations. In an act of faith, they held a sacred pipe ceremony, a ritual that marks the beginning of negotiations. Traditionally, recordings are not allowed, but they made an exception this time.
It's time that we stop hiding our sacred ways of life.
A new social justice group called Common Causes has also joined the movement in rallies from St. John's to Ottawa to Edmonton. Bob Ages explains why.
Supporting First Nations is about defending Mother Earth. They are the original stewards.
And that's exactly how Webster sees other First Nations.
It's our birthright to protect the land. We're not here as saying we're owners, but we're stewardships.
Webster says the Idle No More movement will not back down until the bills are withdrawn. Angela Jung in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine.
Picket lines surrounded BC Place Stadium this week after hundreds of BC Place workers have walked off the job. The BC government's service union says its employees are upset about an expired contract. The union also says that work is being contracted out. Kaylee Miller has more with a reaction from the workers.
The small but dedicated group of BC Place workers picketed outside of the stadium looking for support during their strike. Over 500 employees are expected to walk off the job, which include trades, security, and staff in charge of setting up and tearing down events.
The main issue here in contract negotiations is contracting out and job security. There is work going on inside the stadium that has been contracted out that we believe our members should be doing.
The BCGEU says these workers have been without a contract since last May, and even after a 3-day bargaining session last week, the two sides were unable to reach a deal. While some workers were happy to walk off the job.
My name is Bob, and the reason we're here is because we decide.
Some weren't even aware of the job action.
I've worked here since 1983, so it's 29 years. So I actually do love this job, but when I came to work this morning, this was what everyone was doing, so here we are.
Our members don't want to be out on a picket line. They enjoy their work. They want to be in the building doing their work. So we want to get back to the table as quickly as we can.
While the arena is empty now, BC Place will need these workers to prepare for upcoming events like the Year of the Snake Expo and the International Boat Show.
Representatives from BC Place weren't available for comment, but workers will be striking into the night, and if a bargaining agreement isn't reached, they will not return to work, which could affect upcoming events at BC Place. I'm Kaylee Miller in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine.
Members of methadone patient groups rallied outside a health authority discussion about treatment for the drug. The protesters also unveiled a new patient rights card. My co-anchor Jen Bailey has the story.
These demonstrators are angry they have not been included in a health authority discussion on improvements to the province's methadone treatment program.
I'm sure it's a great discussion, and I'm really looking forward to the result. The point is more about the process, and so you can't have drug users' voices and concerns or methadone patients' concerns as an afterthought. It really needs to be integrated in how these solutions are developed.
There were 2 methadone patients invited to the meeting, but the group felt there should have been more.
BCAPOM has been around for 10 years, and that we've also been working with the city and the College of Pharmacists and Physicians to get a methadone task force, as well as a patients advisory group. And we would think that if something as big as this would come to Vancouver, that we would be the first people to be notified, and that we would be able to have, if not equal, pretty close to equal representation.
But Dr. Trevor Carneal from the Interior Health Authority felt the patients' interests were well represented.
What we're hoping for in terms of outcomes are a clear delineation of what the barriers are and solutions that come from the ground up, not from the ministry down. And I think that's what makes today particularly exciting.
Members of the association also showed off a new rights card. The card highlights patients' rights, including choices about services and the option to submit complaints.
So now what I think the patient's card will do is just make patients feel a little bit more secure that there are peers that are going through that there's a peer community that are going through the same things, and that there is actually a complaints process that they can go through. We'd really like to change it and make it more, we'd actually like to make it peer run.
The BC Association of People on Methadone would like these rights cards to be handed out to methadone patients across BC. They outline information and choices about services. They plan to hand them out to over 10,000 methadone patients across BC. Jen Bailey in Richmond for BCIT Magazine.
Coming up next on BCIT Magazine, local actors are feeling the pinch as the film industry in BC takes a dive. And one of Vancouver's elementary schools is getting a whole new building.
They say if you want a wish to come true, never tell anyone. But there is one wish that can make the difference between life and death. And this wish can only come true if you tell someone. Please, let your family know you want to be an organ donor.
Standby graphics, ready, camera one.
If you want to experience the fast-paced world of news,
today on BCIT Magazine, striking,
make magic on a movie set,
frame,
and action, or bring your creative ideas to life, BCIT's hands-on training will get you started. BCIT Television and Video Production. Your possibilities start here.
Students at the Vancouver Academy of Dramatic Arts say they're feeling the effects of the declining film and TV industry in BC. They say their job prospects are bleak and that the provincial government is to blame. Jennifer Ferguson finds out how the demise of Hollywood North is impacting these students and acting schools as a whole.
I can take direction. I am an actor too. I teach it and I am it.
These students are part of the full-time acting program at the Vancouver Academy of Dramatic Arts. They spend 5 days a week in class and many hours afterwards, hoping they will one day make it as an actor. Students say reaching this dream is becoming more difficult with the decline of the film industry in BC.
I mean, this is pilot season right now, and so far I've only taped one that was not in Vancouver. So the last 2 months I've only had one audition that was taped, sent away to Toronto, so I've also felt it.
As a full-time student, we spend a lot of time and money training to become an actor, but all the training in the world doesn't matter if there's no jobs out there for us.
Daniel Boileau is the artistic director of VADA as well as an actor. He has joined the fight to save film in BC.
The scope of this I don't think is really hitting everyone quite yet, because a lot of people are looking at it, well, it'll affect local businesses, it'll affect restaurants, it'll affect rental houses, so on and so forth. But now let's look at it 5 years from now. If the industry doesn't pick up, it will probably affect a lot more than what we have our eye on right now. And acting school will probably be one of those things.
These are not the best of times for Hollywood North. BC has moved from the third largest production center in North America to the fourth largest, falling behind LA, New York, and Ontario. This has caused some of the movie studios, like the one behind me, to remain empty and unused. Many of the people employed by the film and TV industry are also now out of work and joining together to save BC Film. A Facebook page has been created called Save BC Film. It has already received more than 5,000 likes and 28,000 people have visited the site to sign the petition. The industry says it will continue to put pressure on the government to increase tax credits in BC. As for the province, it says matching Ontario's credit would only be a race to the bottom. Jennifer Ferguson in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine.
6 BC universities predict that there will be a massive shortage of skilled workers within 3 years. Many vacant jobs will require job seekers to have a university degree, college, or trades credential. But as Angela Jung found out, while there is the need, institutions don't have space to admit everyone.
These students are training to be mechanical engineers. When they graduate, they will likely be in high demand because BC will face a shortage of post-secondary graduates.
You know, the days when you needed a strong back to get a job, those are gone.
Employers need people with diplomas and training. In 2020, 8,400 jobs will require a university degree, 8,100 jobs will require a college credential, and 2,300 jobs will need trades training. In total, 18,800 jobs will go unfilled. SFU's president Andrew Petter says there's a need to increase student spaces.
More students trying to get in. So at Simon Fraser University now, students who 5 years ago would have got into the university with an 80% average in high school now can't get in. And it breaks my heart.
But even if spaces were available, Harvey Wong says school can be too expensive for some people.
It's like anything. If you can't afford it, you don't really move ahead that easily.
Other students agree. It's a financial burden.
Student loans, got a job right now, did have 2 jobs.
If the education is more affordable, it will draw more people towards the institution.
Which is why one of the study's 3 recommendations includes a financial assistance program. But this comes with a $140 million price tag.
It does require, investment, but I think it's an investment and a payoff for British Columbia in the long run.
Unless more students can be admitted, it will be a challenging decade for both education and BC's economy. Angela Jung in Burnaby for BCIT Magazine. One of Vancouver's 3 French immersion elementary schools will be getting a whole new building. The Vancouver School Board and the provincial government announced funding for the new school, which will meet current earthquake standards. For some, the announcement is bittersweet because the 100-year-old building will not be saved. Connor Denoon has the story.
Surrounded by music, Minister of Education Don McCrae announced the $15 million project to replace L'École Belling.
This school is being replaced at a cost of $12 million as part of this government's seismic mitigation program. We want to ensure that all students have safe, comfortable schools in which to work and, of course, play. Do you guys like recess? Yeah, me too.
Students in the library sang songs and danced for officials, including School Board Chair Patty Backus and parents. The Parents Advisory Council started on the upgrade proposal 5 years ago, and they're excited all of their work is about to pay off.
Amazing. It's been, the last 2 years have been really just waiting on when we will be approved.
L'École Belling celebrated its centennial last year. However, the original structure will not be saved due to the cost. Ben Clayton is a student at the school, and he has mixed feelings about his old school being demolished.
Well, it's good and bad. Like, it's a great school. It's over 100 years old, so, but having a new school is great, and with bathroom on every floor.
The project is supposed to be completed by August 2015, and a temporary site is being set up for students during construction.
Actually, you know what? How about you guys turn around, like kids? Can you look at the camera? Because no one wants to see the back of your head.
Connor Danoon in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine.
How about a big thumbs up, everybody?
Laneway houses are gaining popularity in Vancouver. The city issued a record 350 laneway housing permits, more than double the recorded average over the previous 2 years. My co-anchor Jen Bailey has the story on this small house trend.
Laneway house is a small infill dwelling that can go on the back of someone's property where the garage used to be.
These homes are popping up all over Metro Vancouver as cities aim to make their single-family neighborhoods denser to provide affordable housing for a growing population.
Vancouver was able to create this whole new housing industry just through this policy approach. And so as soon as they passed that bylaw, we kind of hit the ground running and were able to get the first project built.
Davidson works for Lane Fab, a growing builder of small, eco-friendly houses.
They're custom designs, but we use prefab components that are manufactured off-site so we can put up the framing of the building in about 2 days. What this allows us to do is to build a building that's much more energy efficient for a price that's fairly competitive.
Davidson thinks changes in how permits are dealt with have contributed to the increase in laneway homes.
I think now they've really tried to rework things to expedite that process, and so it's sort of moving through more quickly.
And more communities are catching on. Now Burnaby is getting public input on laneway houses.
We've had planning department working on it. I mean, we just don't want to get into a situation where people are throwing these up all over the place and it's creating all kinds of problems. So, like I say, we want to make sure it's done right.
With the constant battle for space in Vancouver, Davidson is thinking outside the box in house design.
So wherever we can, we're always trying to push the envelope.
And with faster processing time, these backyard mini houses may become the new basement suite. Jen Bailey in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine.
Coming up next on BCIT Magazine, a woman shares her story on organ donation. And Team Canada gets ready to face Spain in their Davis Cup tie-breaking match.
They say if you want a wish to come true, never tell anyone. But there is one wish that can make the difference between life and death. And this wish can only come true if you tell someone. Please, let your family know you want to be an organ donor.
Standby graphics, ready, camera one.
If you want to experience the fast-paced world of news,
today on BCIT Magazine, striking,
make magic on a movie set,
frame,
and action, or bring your creative ideas to life, BCIT's hands-on training will get you started. BCIT Television and Video Production. Your possibilities start here.
Hi, I'm Amber Rockcliffe, and this is BCIT Magazine's Community Calendar.
2013 is the year of the snake. Celebrate the Chinese New Year at the International Village, February 15th to 17th on West Pender Street. More than 150,000 visitors will attend the event, which includes live performances, traditional dance, and kids activities. And of course, one of the biggest events of the year is Vancouver's Chinese New Year Parade on February 17th in the heart of historic Chinatown. If skating is your thing, don't miss the Valentine's Skate here at the Bill Copeland Sports Center on Kensington Avenue in Burnaby, February 9th through 11th. Bring your sweetheart to enjoy skating, Valentine's crafts, face painting, and fun games. That was your community calendar. I'm Amber Rockcliffe for BCIT Magazine.
She's known as Liver Giver Katie. The young woman donated more than half of her liver to her younger brother and saved his life. Now she's using her story to encourage others to register as an organ donor, and the message is spreading. As Kaylee Miller found out, this was a record-breaking year for organ donations and transplants in BC.
When I woke up later, the nurse was like, well, it's because they took 60% of your liver. And I was going, what?
For 24-year-old Katie Powell, it wasn't until her younger brother needed a life-saving liver transplant that she thought about organ registration.
I just, thought, I'm tough enough to do this. Let's do it. It's the right thing to do.
Katie's brother was suffering from primary sclerosing cholangitis, a disease that attacks the bile ducts inside the liver. When there was nothing else doctors could do, they told the family he needed a liver transplant. Katie is one of 7 living liver donors to complete a transplant in 2012.
We've got more transplants done this last year than any other year in our history.
A record 306 people in BC received a transplant last year, and the province is now above the national average for organ donations. The BC Transplant Society says these are great numbers, but there's a catch.
85% of people think, that transplantation and donation are good things when we ask them on the street. But yet 18.5% have registered.
But Dr. Grant believes the heroic stories of donors and recipients, including Katie's story, will encourage more people to register.
This is someone who did a really heroic act. She saved her brother's life. There's no question about that.
I know he's appreciative and very thankful that he's not sick anymore. I just want to let people know that live liver donation is something that happens. You can donate your liver and it grows back. So 6 to 8 weeks later, I had my liver all the way back.
While Katie says her dreams of being a model may be over, she's 100% glad she saved her brother's life. Kaylee Miller in Burnaby for BCIT Magazine.
More than 480 people in BC are on a wait list for a life-saving transplant. Our reporter Kaylee Miller joins us live with her guest, Lindsay Schneider, who was one of the people on that list until she received a life-saving miracle. Kaylee?
Yes, she did. Lindsay here in 2012, she received a new heart from an organ donor. So Lindsay, you were telling me earlier that this condition that you were in, it was just debilitating. Tell me about your state before you had the organ transplant.
Oh, it was horrible. I couldn't breathe. I basically couldn't do anything. I slept all the time because I couldn't get up and down the stairs without help. I couldn't get to the kitchen by myself. I couldn't pick up my son. I couldn't take him to the park. I basically couldn't do anything. It was awful.
It's just awful.
Yeah.
And so you're 28 years old, you've got a young son. This operation it saved your life. So tell me how your life has changed since the transplant.
Oh, it's amazing. It's indescribable. I can do anything I want. I'm actually going to the gym now. I can do anything with my son. I take him to the park all the time. It's just spending time with him, having a second chance at life, seeing him grow up it's going to be amazing. And I wasn't actually too sure how that was going to turn out in the end.
And tell me about when you received that call that you were getting a new heart. What was that day like for you?
When I got the call, it was, I can't even describe what I felt like. I just burst into tears, and it's so hard to talk about. It's indescribable. I just felt so relieved and happy and scared and all at the same time. And my son was there with me, and he kept telling me, it's going to be okay, Mom, it's going to be okay, you'll be fine.
That's so great. Well, we're so happy to have you here today to talk about organ donation.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's just such a wonderful thing, and we're glad we got to do this story. So.
Thank you.
Back to you.
Thanks, Kaylee. Well, earlier this week, Team Canada was getting ready for their match against Spain in the Davis Cup tennis tournament. The men's team held a practice at the Thunderbird Sports Center and have high hopes against a Spanish team missing their star player. Connor Danoon has the details from the men's tennis practice.
Fresh from a fourth-round finish at the Australian Open, Canada's Milos Raonic will lead Canada against a weakened Spanish team at their Davis Cup match. Spain is without their star player Rafael Nadal, who's been out of tennis action since Wimbledon with tendinitis in his left knee. Despite no Nadal, Raonic says he doesn't think Spain sent a lesser team to face Canada.
It's still going to be very difficult. I think you look at the guys they brought, they're still all experienced guys, and they know how to play in these situations.
Raonic was looking good in his warm-up, dispelling any concerns of injury.
On hard court in general, I feel like quite confident, not matter who I'm playing.
Players' practice as construction and setup for the tournament was going on. Even some kids were treated to a sneak peek of Canada's top tennis talent. Team captain Martin Laurendow is excited to have home court advantage.
Anything can happen, just like in the NHL playoffs, and you just deal with what is going on game day.
Now, Canada has never won a Davis Cup, but we are in the World Group. The group is comprised of the top 16 nationally ranked teams in the world. As for this match against Spain, it is an important game for Canada, as the winner gets to hold on to their seat in the World Group for 2014, and the loser would have to play another game in order to keep their spot. Connor Danoon in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine.
If you have any questions or comments regarding this program, please visit us online at bcit-broadcast.com or bcitbroadcastnews.ca. I'm Virginia McConkey.
And I'm Jen Bailey, and that's today's BCIT Magazine. Thanks for watching. We leave you now with tennis champions training at the Davis Cup, at UBC.